Hello, my name is Tom DeLuca, and today I want to share with you a conversation. This conversation brings together two people, one from the left and one from the right, for a thoughtful, extended discussion about the role of government in our lives. Over the next hour and a half, we'll explore how government spending decisions are made, how citizens should influence those decisions, and what effective government support looks like in practice. We'll also dig into two areas that affect nearly everyone: healthcare and education. This isn't a debate focused on winning points, but a conversation aimed at understanding where perspectives differ, where they overlap, and where people arrive at the views they hold. The goal is to listen closely, challenge ideas respectfully, and make space for nuance in a time when it's often missing. I want to ask the audience to be respectful of all participants on this channel, including but not limited to these guests, your fellow commenters, and myself. With that being said, here's the conversation. We can get started whenever. I'm still okay with it being free form. I gave you guys several categories that we'd go over. However, I was talking with and we were discussing that it's probably hard to hit all 10 I think it's 10 or 8 categories. So she said it'd probably be best to focus in on like strengthening
What?
democracy or constitutional reform. And if we do want to do things, I have 20 pre-written questions that we can roll dice on, and we can just kind of jump off a random topic if that's what you guys prefer.
Whatever. I was looking too, when I was kind of thinking about it, and like,
Hmm.
you had the government spending as like a category, but I feel
Yeah.
like, your affordability, healthcare, education, those kind of like all go underneath that umbrella anyway. So we could, it's a
Okay.
good way to like kind of hit four for one.
Yeah, we can start with
I mean, we don't have
a
to start
government
there.
spending.
I was just looking at it when I was like looking at the things that I kind of put together.
Yeah, that's fine. Do you guys want to do a brief introduction for yourselves on kind of like it can be very vague, but I was thinking like profession, um, type of family structure, and then like kind of vague region of the state. We're all from Illinois, for the audience. Um,
Yeah, take it away, KB.
Let's start out with the intro. So you have your intro question.
yeah, yeah. So just like you want to give you guys some basic demographics just to give the audience a little bit of an idea on kind of where you're coming from in the political landscape, kind of like what type of industry you're in, maybe some basic family structure, but keep it vague, and then kind of a vague spot where you're in the country. We're all in Illinois, but if you want to mention like the region, that should be more than okay.
Well, my name is Quabina. I live in Illinois, obviously central Illinois. Got a wife, kids, a couple dogs, and a cat. I work as a digital forensic engineer. Been doing that for a couple years. It's a good gig. I would classify myself loosely, I suppose, as an anarcho-communist, I suppose, but um, there's times where it almost leans just I don't know, like a Maoist third worldist. So I I don't know. Either way, I believe that only through collectivism can there be a genuine path forward.
Okay, and then over to you, Bill.
Yeah, sure. Well, obviously, like you said, my name's Bill. Um, I'm, I'd say we're still, like Northern Illinois. I mean, Chicago suburbs. Um, a general manager for,
Food service.
and, family as I, you know, wife, 5 kids, and what else did you ask? Just
Kind of like
basically
your
political
political
background.
leaning. Yeah.
I've been pretty like say you could say central like most of my life, right on border, leaning either way on differing topics.
Hmm.
Um, I'd say in the past, maybe decade or so, I don't know that I would say that like I necessarily went one way or another. I just feel like the the bar itself has shifted where like my ideology is kind of where it was, but where I like find a home now with those same thoughts, used to be the middle and now it's more to the right than it was before.
Okay.
Like I said, yeah, I just feel, like the left moved what their moderate left was a little too far out of reach for me. So now, yeah,
No
that's where
worries.
we are.
Yeah, this is a open space. This is gonna be a respectful space. And the main reason for this conversation is for us to find solutions that work, hopefully for everyone.
Right.
Y'all are definitely on different sides of the political spectrum. I would consider myself a progressive centrist, which I would say both sides would classify as disgusting liberal. But hey, we're all around everywhere. So
Right.
to kind of get us going, if we're gonna kind of focus off the blanket of government spending, I guess my first question with for both of y'all is gonna be, and this is gonna be multiple choice. So, which statement best reflects your view on the federal spending? One, government should spend more to solve big problems. Spending should increase in some areas and decrease in others. Government spends too much and should be scaled back. And then the main issue isn't spending levels, but waste and inefficiency. Um, Either of you guys can start.
You go ahead, Katie. You intro first. You can go ahead first, and then I'll take the next one.
Okay. Um, I suppose it doesn't necessarily matter what the spending levels are. It's based on where spending is going, and that's kind of always been my thing. So if we're going to invest money into places, why not it be into our communities? So I, I just don't see Palantir needing another, you know, government subsidy. I don't see SpaceX needing that when we have a perfectly good NASA and we can build out even better. Uh, Not even just government ran agencies, but privately owned agencies that, yes, they are also owned by the people that work there, but it just only makes sense because the people that do the job should run the organization. So that's kind of where I'm coming from. I guess it doesn't necessarily matter the levels because we're not talking like a household income here or a household budget here. We're talking states. So that's where I'm at.
Yeah. One second, guys.
No worries. Well, while we're waiting on that, KB, do you think um it would be okay, or do you think the way that we have it set up where every state pays into the federal government and then it's redistributed through the federal government the right way of sending that money? Or do you think each state should kind of keep to their own little um banks and then kind of work together and say, hey, these are the resources we have. We can share these for these other resources and kind of cut the money out of the question.
Again, I guess this is one of the things that um, between my head and my heart, right? So I
Hmm.
say in my heart, I want to be a anarcho-communist where it's a stateless society. There's no hierarchies, and then like I guess in my head, it's like at the end of the day, there has to be some sort of dictatorship of the proletariat, right? That allows for there to be um, central planning, central thought. So that's where I almost feel like yes, we should maintained our federalized system where there is that government that comes in and, they're able to maintain some homeostasis or whatnot. But then again, we could just become syndicalists, right? So each state says, this is what we're able to provide. What are our overarching goals as a society, right? I
Mm.
think that makes more sense to me than anything else. But again, I'm very conflicted in this time.
Yeah, I understand. How about you, Bill? Do you want? I can repeat the question if you like.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah. Which statement best reflects your view on federal spending? Government should spend more to solve big problems. Spending should increase in some areas and decrease in others. Government spends too much and should be scaled back. And then the main issue isn't spending levels, but wasting and inefficiency.
Um, I feel like it's like for the two middle statements you just said about the spending, they kind of walk hand in hand with each other. So I would say that like I could see myself agreeing with both of those things.
Okay.
I definitely think that there is like areas where there is a lot of overspending and waste and stuff like that too. But I mean that's realistically, even if you wanted to privatize a lot of things, private companies have waste, you know, government has waste. It's just how it is.
Yeah.
So I don't, you can never really trim all that out. But I think, where the money is going, I think is something that, could be looked at a lot better. Um,
Maybe you said something about money shouldn't be going to larger like corporations like Palantir, SpaceX,
yeah,
things that kind of
I
have this $1 billion capital. Do you think there should be? Do you agree that they shouldn't be going to those type of areas?
I actually, I mean, it was that was something I did want to bring up too, is that like, I don't necessarily think that like the good example was that he brought was like, saying, hey, that's like if we're giving these, this money to SpaceX, but we have perfectly good NASA and stuff like that. But,
Hmm.
when you're comparing them, NASA isn't perfectly good compared to where SpaceX is, how quickly they've advanced over NASA, their abilities, I think it's kind of just goes to show that like that privatized world in some of these sectors, like that's where the money should go. We shouldn't put it to something that's, like NASA. It seems almost, I don't want to say outdated, but the private sector is moving significantly faster and they do have more capital. But if you have, you know, X amount of dollars allocated towards, funding NASA, then it maybe wouldn't be the worst thing in the world where a portion of that went towards subsidies for something like SpaceX, and then they were able to just, draw back the rest and not fund NASA at all, frankly.
Yeah, that's interesting. Um, from my own personal experience, I do think uh, uh, one question that comes to mind for me is like, okay, NASA, because it is a government it's a part of the government of the United States of America. Technically, it is a company that's ran by all of the people of America. Um, while a company like SpaceX is sitting with a multi-billion-dollar person that is come under fire recently for questions about his affiliation in the Epstein files. So I just is there certain lines that we should be drawing for who we're giving money to? Um, I'm only following up on this because you mentioned that where the money goes matters.
Yeah, I mean, I think that like there's, I'm gonna jump like and make another kind of analogy. That's the way my
No
brain works
worries.
a lot. So, you know, my wife and I had a big, I don't want to say disagreement, but you could say discussion about when there was the jumbotron with the CEO and his
Uh-huh.
that's just whatever. And she was making a point about how it's a good thing that that company let him go, da da da, because like he like showed where his morals are and his values and stuff like that. Where on
Hmm.
the other hand, I was in disagreement, and I think that something like that, if you're a CEO of a successful company, it's the, like, yeah, being tied up with like really, really terrible, serious stuff, that has its consequences. But something like that, okay, we don't know the full effect of like what this guy's situation was in his home or in his workplace. And then like, to be kind of like the collective group decided that we don't like him, so we just cancel him and everything that he's done, and then he loses his job. It's like
Yeah.
kind of to that same effect. Like I don't know that I want to
Well,
like look at the personality behind the company. I
so
want to
what
look at
what
like
about
what the
criminal action
company
then?
does. Okay,
Because
like as far as in like somebody leading a company being convicted of a crime and stuff like that, should we be giving that person money? Is that kind of where you're going?
I it, that for sure being one, that's definitely something I would say is a definite. I would say more on the leaning of if there's a allegation or there's charges pressed, should a company be suspending somebody while they're waiting for these charges to go through, or are we kind of sitting on innocent until proven guilty?
I would honestly, I would say innocent until proven guilty, especially in these big companies with big names. I mean, you know, just to, like you look at somebody like Elon Musk, since we're, on the topic
Yeah.
of him, and it's like, you know, you go back in time 5, 6 years, and you know, half the country was like, man, this guy's trying to get rid of my diesel engine. Like, they're going to replace my 4x4 with a plug-in car, and the other half is like, oh man, let's go green, let's save the environment. Everybody wanted to be his friend, and he opens his mouth about one thing, citing one way or another. Now he's been demonized. His companies have been,
Oh, for his political outreach this last
yeah,
year.
yeah. So,
I mean,
so
that's
right,
one way of looking at it, but that's a awfully
Well, Gibby, you can step in if you want to have a
deductible.
yeah,
rebuttal a
yeah,
little bit.
right, of course. I
Elon's
mean,
always been
yeah.
hated. Elon's a weirdo. He's always been hated. I
Well,
think
sure, he's
just
a
to
weird.
go back to like your SpaceX comment, like I would hope after $89 billion of taxpayer money, you would be able to catch a rocket with an arm. Like, yeah,
Sure.
they are able to jump past us if we're giving the money that's meant for NASA to SpaceX. So I don't necessarily understand this. Oh, well, the private sector works faster. They have our money. So, of course, they work faster. Our people are working with one hand tied behind their back. And as far as CEO, that's irrelevant to the grander scale vision of how is our state going to continue for the next 25, 50, 100 years.
Okay, I
That's
do have a, I have a question on that because
sure.
you seem pretty knowledgeable about certain things. So how much money has SpaceX received? Are you aware of the number?
So between 2008 and today, they have roughly received anywhere between 20 billion to 89 billion dollars between NASA and the Department of Defense.
Okay,
Obviously, the Department of Defense, there is a lot of like, I wouldn't say fungible, but gray money that you're not going to like put out into the public because obviously national security issues. So
right, right.
there's there is a lot of speculation to say there is $89 billion. So anywhere between 20 to $89 billion of taxpayer funded money.
So
It's
so the assumption being that with the roughly $100 billion worth of money, then there's an
correct.
expectation of like return that we should get for it.
Yes,
Correct.
I would agree.
Okay,
I would
so
expect there to be.
just to be fair, looking at NASA over the same period of time, they've received over $300 billion and haven't done it. That is three times the amount.
Yes and no. So I think NASA is should be looked at more um as like a overarching department. So they're not just doing space missions, they're doing atmospheric testing, they're looking at the oceans, they're doing a lot. That's not
Sure.
just getting stuff into space.
Right. My point just being that like, you know, if you like it, it has to the companies need to align with where our country's goals are. If our country's goals are getting to space and doing things like that, then like that's where some of the country's money should go, and we should see success from that.
That's actually a really interesting point you got there, Bill, because that is something that is Trump did something interesting in this last year, and I'd like your opinion on this because he bought 10% of Intel in this last year and considers it a golden share. He's doing that. He says that to get a company in line with the desires of an American government. But that type of political move is considered more of a market communist tool. Would you be okay if
Mm,
the government had more say over
no.
what private companies can do in that level and like kind of directing them and managing them as a level above the CEO?
I mean, in general, I want to say no, but at the same time, again, it's okay. Does the company like when it's just like any other contract, I guess you could look at it. When two companies merge together, let's say one buys one out or buys out a certain percentage of one, da 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 da. You know, the company with the purchasing power ultimately should have like some decision making power for the company that they're funding. You know,
Hmm.
so having said that, if the company being the United States wants to invest money into a different, privatized company, and that privatized company is willing to accept the money, then they should be contractually like obligated to accept what comes with it.
Okay, so I guess KB, would you agree that with where Bill's saying is like if we're giving these companies this money, they should be giving a return on investment?
I suppose, yeah. I guess I would
Do we want to get into the
a little
specifics a
about
little
the
bit on how we want this to
characterization.
work? Like kind of setting enforcement rules. Like what happens if we give let's keep SpaceX as an example because it's easy to shit on Elon from both sides, I feel. Um, but maybe it's not. So for a company like SpaceX, who is getting what we said $20 billion at minimum, on a higher estimate closer to 100 billion from U.S. tax dollar money. If if we as Americans do not see that we're getting this return on investment, we're seeing where they're putting this money, do we want to have some power as the populace to be able to say, hey, cut off this money?
So, is this
Like,
open to both of us right now?
yeah, but to both of you.
Yeah,
Like,
100%, 100%.
okay.
I mean that
So
that
how would
you
how would you
you just
how would you
go
want
ahead.
that to work? Would it be like telling our Congress people to do it, or do we want to have some type of we can put it on the ballot and everybody can vote on it type of situation?
I mean, the problem is I feel like both are flawed. You know, both have their like major issues. So it's like
Mhm.
in an ideal world where Congress people truly represent the people's interest, then I think that would be fine. But the obvious
Yeah.
issue being that that's not the case.
See, this is a clear contradiction, is understanding that people with power may not always be good people. So, do we put the power in them? I do not think so. That's why I lean towards let's just direct democracy, ballot initiatives. Let's see what the people have to say. We have the technology nowadays to do just American Idol that bitch. Just send out a fucking mass email, a mass text message, 72-hour notice, 20 or 48-hour notice,
Okay.
24-hour notice. Here's exactly how your guys are going to vote, and then give the vote.
See, I feel like
Yeah, but
24 hours, 72 hours, a little tight of a deadline for a lot of households.
Well, I just mean like 72-hour notice before the deadline. You, of course, would still do the normal thing that a normal bill would go through, right? Like you're not going to just create a bill and in 3 days going to roll it out. That'd be silly. You would
Mhm.
go through the normal bill process, which takes months and months and months of deliberation until it comes to a vote.
Would we want these votes to still be in person? Obviously, you're saying have it via email or on the phone. With your security background, is there something that you would like to see that would help secure some type of ballot initiative vote like that, or something that would give people confidence in that type of system?
I mean, honestly, there is the technology out there currently to have a best way to describe it is almost like a double blind, so like both people can't see what's going on to be able to say, I'm going to provide my data to this box that's essentially black for two people to see until another person who has the key can open said box. That would be the easiest way of doing so. However, the logistics, right? I mean, it would be feasible. Again, I feel like this would just be something that a competent government would say, a state initiative where you push your high schools for more technology focus so that way you get more kids in STEM fields into your community colleges, get those guys into the state government, and then start building out your infrastructure for elections to be able to roll that out. I mean, that would be just off the top a competent government would do, but I don't know.
Okay, so yeah, a competent government would be great right now. I think for sure. I think overall we're all kind of in agreement that what it's doing is not working. From everything from the executive not obeying the law to Congress not enforcing the law. Um, I guess kind of jumping towards the mechanics of our broken government. Uh, Obviously, we have a problem with the people in Congress, right? So, is there a way that you would like to see to change how we do Congress, or how we can get better candidates on the ballots? Like, do you all support the idea of a ranked choice voting process? Things along those lines. Bill, you can start if you'd like.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily think that we have to change how the candidates get on there, but I think that they 100% need to have term limits, you know? And I think if, kind of similar thought process to like privatizing some of the stuff, again, it's just like, I think with a cap on how long you're going to be there and knowing that people are going to be shuffling in and out a little bit more often, it would just make that sector more competitive as well.
Okay.
And I think, competition breeds excellence.
Would you also want other limitations like stock trading bans for people in Congress and their families?
I mean, I think that should just be to all seating government officials. Well, at the higher federal level, I should say. I don't think
Okay.
a mayor of some quote on town is really making money moves like that. But
I'm gonna put it down as ban stock trading for anyone in the federal government.
yeah,
Um, how about what was I gonna say? Kibby, do you want to give some input on this?
I mean, I don't really
Or
have much,
yeah,
much on this one. It, I think it's silly. I think that obviously we should not have a two-party system. We should not even have a structure like we currently have. It would be so much easier if we just direct democracy. Each
bypass Congress.
county, each county makes their own. recommendations for what they want to see in their neighborhoods and their communities, and then they run with that. And then as a state, we can say this is what we want to see as a state, and this is what we want to see our economy do. And then as a nation, we can say this is what we want to see our nation do. This is what we want to see our, collective economies do. Like
So,
it's just
KB,
easy to have
if you don't
one
mind,
person.
yeah,
What's up?
if you don't mind, I just want to dig further on like your own ideology and just ask about it. So, in a 50 state country where we are right now, I'm just asking this question specifically just because I'm curious, not trying to poke a hole or anything like that. But in let's say we have, exactly 25 states that would consider themselves to be Democratic right now, and exactly 25 that would consider themselves to be Republican right now. In your vision of what you would like this country to look like, if they made it up the ladder to the point where counties make their own decisions and then states make their own decisions based off those counties, and then we come together as a nation to make national decisions, how are we gonna how do we go about coming to an agreement when there is that like divide between, I guess, big issues where you might have 25-25 split? Like, where do we go from there?
I mean, it would be no different than figuring out how to negotiate, right? So like you would just be able to negotiate with other people and say, well, what works best for your interests and what works best for my interests, and then we just go off of that. These are just big state ideas. It wouldn't necessarily be like the counties control the state, and that's what's so beautiful about a decentralized system is that no specific person controls one thing. We all control everything, right? So like if we were to say at a larger level, 50 states, you would have a representative of the syndicalists, specifically for Illinois, because you'll start to notice the only place I really particularly care about is Illinois. Like the rest of the country, well and good. Like
Yeah,
obviously that matters. But Illinois is my home. Illinois is the only place that I'm ever going to live, and that's the only place I care about. So the syndicalists of Illinois would have a representative that has 100% recallability. So, meaning one county could say, we do not like this person. Here's the reason why we don't like them. Recall them back, and they have to give a reason as to why they shouldn't be recalled. So, like a giant government recall, except at a smaller level and a lot quicker in terms of direct democracy. The people get to say, yeah, we're not feeling this anymore. But we would have the 50 representatives, and like you said, 25 and 25, and we would just have to figure it out. We would have to figure out, okay, where do we both come to our interests? Because I believe the whole Republican Democrat nonsense is that just nonsense. We all have the same needs. We all have the same wants. Everything's too damn expensive. We just want to make sure that our kids are healthy, and we really, really, really want to make sure that we're safe. I think that we can all agree, whether you're on the far left or on the far right, it's ridiculous. All arbitrary labels. The things that matter
yeah,
are what's materially around us. So,
yeah, for sure. That was interesting. If you don't mind me just jumping off a separate kind of related thing, but I watch a lot of just whatever political little chats, videos, kind of thing. And there's this Democratic senator from Texas, and it was interesting thing he said that like he feel like the people in power right now are very much pushing the what on both sides are pushing the left, right, left, right, left, right. But he says, as someone who's like kind of sees it every day, it's more of like a bottom top than left, right. And like,
Miss
it's just like the wool over your eyes is like the left, right thing to keep people against each other rather than like finding the common enemy.
exactly. Because there's never been a battle of the left and the right. It's always been a battle between the proletariat and the bourgeoisie, the bottom and the top. And I think there just needs to be a bigger understanding between us common man that it's us against them. We
Right.
don't own capital. We're not the capital owners. You may own a home. Wow. That's so cool for you. You're not a capital owner. You're not a capitalist. Sorry about you. You're not a Jeff Bezos. You're not an Elon Musk. You're not a fucking Mark Zuckerberg. You're not a, oh God, the Palantir ex CEO, the one that, the Blood Boy, the one.
Yeah, yeah, I know.
Oh, goodness. It's, hold on, this
The
is gonna
blood
bug
boy, and it like clicked for you.
Dracula.
Oh no, the guy's a freaking weirdo. And of course, surprise, Peter Thiel. The if okay, the one time I will give the Republican or the right and the re- Republican folks something, we need to fucking deport Peter Thiel. That fucker just needs to go. Like, fuck him. I don't think deportations are worth anything. They're not worth a shit. My ideal, I will always say this. I've said it forever. We should just be like Star Trek. Star Trek is the best way to live. It is a completely communist society. It's an anarcho-communist society. Everything is, we don't even have to work. That's the beauty of it. We have such great technology, like, I don't know, AI, great machine learning, that all the basic stuff is done for us. All the higher level thinking is what we have to do, like exploring the universe. That's what I think it should be. That would be
Yeah, I mean, it's. I think something like that. You kind of got right up to like. I agree with a lot of it, but then at the end, kind of tapered off a little. But just as far as like the work thing, I mean, I'm not saying that like I love my job or anything like that, or I want to spend more time there than I need to, or I would love to see obviously like a reduction in time there, but I think I guess comparing like where we are in society right now, where we see people that like I guess I don't know. I guess like I was gonna say people that like kind of already live off the system
Yeah.
while everyone else
the only
doesn't. I
people
mean,
that are doing that are Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos, and they seem to be doing pretty well.
well, I mean like live off the other end of the system, like the true top versus the true bottom. I think I don't even know that I would say it's like top versus bottom. I think it's like middle versus all. Because like
Yeah,
you have like the actual bottom is like getting a free ride on everything. I mean, they obviously don't have the same life of luxury that the person at the top does, but I mean, they probably spend as much hours in the office as the person at the top does.
I do want to step in here for a second, and I want to drop a couple facts. Um,
Yeah.
one thing that is a huge problem towards the bottom being just from personal experience and from others that I've been able to communicate this with, the the support system of like food SNAP and the Obamacare subsidies and stuff like that. There is it its value is assigned to something called the poverty line. However, the poverty line does not adjust with inflation. So what has been happening is a lot of these support systems they stop paying out before people even climb to the point where they're at the bottom or like about to climb over the poverty line. So it's created this kind of valley between where support from the government ends and being self-sustaining begins. And this has been a huge problem towards the bottom for people to climb over. I personally have been was a person that had to climb myself out of a financial situation to get from over this divide. And it is a hard thing to do. A lot of people don't make it over this divide, and there's a lot of issues where it comes to if you become homeless, you're no longer able to vote unless you're able to get to five of the same, going to five different visits to the same homeless shelter. They have them sign off on residency paperwork for you to register to vote. So a lot of people, when they fall to the point where they're out of housing, they can no longer participate in the system to let themselves choose a representative to help them get into a better spot. Um, I think there is a lot of a open bottom. Like the bottom has been blown out on our economy. Uh, the tax reductions that they extended permanently, for the lowest income earners, it was actually increased from 8% to 10%. So those tax cuts for the rich did increase for the lowest individuals. The reasoning behind it was they believed that people weren't that, like, couldn't exist that poor without being fraudulent, which was it's a little disgusting to hear. But I did want to give that context.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's just hard because, like I'll say a couple of different things real quick. Number one, it's like you never want to take away from a person who genuinely needs something. So
Yeah.
that's why this feel like becomes so nuanced because you know if 99 people are just abusing this, what one person really needs it, it's like I'd rather still the 99 people have it and abuse it so that one person can get it.
Yeah, my follow-up question then is, why does the richest man in the world deserve more than, like, the amount that we give him just for one company, like we said, at minimum is $20 billion. So if we gave $1 million to 2,000 different people instead, or even less than that, to a larger vast of people, why do you think that somebody like Elon Musk or SpaceX as a company is worth more than um, some mass of thousands of people being able to afford living?
Uh, you know, it's I think that's like kind of a nuanced statement as well, a little bit. I think they're like you said. I mean, some people, yeah, maybe this is like just what they need to get them out of their situation. But then at the same time, there is a lot of people where they're the I guess you could say like the reasoning for them being in the situation in the first place comes a little bit from things that aren't necessarily defined by their income level in the first place. There's that it's like people who have like severe mental health issues or like people who have like drug addictions. I'm
Mm,
just using like as two examples. It's like you give a drug addict $1 million, so it's not gonna that's actually just gonna probably kill them faster. So like now I know that like the drug addict shouldn't speak for you know the single mom of two who's
mm,
like struggling to get by, but the reality is they are more or less in the same financial boat to some extent. So it's like again like hard to justify just the huge handouts and stuff like that. And
yeah.
at the same time, am I going to sit here and say, yeah, like the richest person in the world deserves
But I'm still
more
sorry.
with
I'm
it?
still trying to understand, why is it hard to justify? What is it? Why is it? Because they're a drug addict that they just should die? Like, what is the justification? Like, why is it hard to justify giving them more, giving them support?
I mean, because at the end of the day, I mean, like, we all contribute to the society, and I'm
Correct.
speaking for the three of us right now. We're contributing members of the society, and like, I would love for my money to like make my society better, but I don't think that like you know the money that I'm like taking away from my family to give to the government should be turned around and given to somebody who isn't making my society better.
Agreed. Like Elon Musk, like the Epstein class, like Israel, places like that.
Right, but do you genuinely be honest? Do you think that like some drug addict living on the street provides less to society than Elon Musk does?
They provide more to
Yes.
society than Elon does. Yes, 100%, every single day of the
You,
week.
you
And
think
then,
that
and
homeless?
also
I'm sorry. You say that again. Kind of cut.
every single day. We need
That,
we need that person to be lifted up. They have in them way more than Elon ever could. Like, I genuinely believe Elon and the billionaire are no different than the rapists and pedophiles. They are all the same in my eyes. So, yeah, I don't care about that. They can all go off someplace. Like, they have no business in civilized society. I don't know why we're defending.
I guess I have two questions I want to jump in here with. My first question for both of you is going to be whether or not either of y'all had to apply or was on some type of government support system, whether that be SNAP or a public subsidized health care. And then my second question is going to be about for Elon Musk specifically and all of his companies. Can you name a specific example of where he has been a benefit to you and a detriment to you? And or I'm not gonna make you try to name the opposite. Just being that you guys are on different sides of it with funding his operations.
Sure. You want to start, Katie? Because I feel like I just kind of had a lot of that last one.
So I'll just break that apart then. So the first part being, what's that first part, Tom?
Did you ever receive?
If you ever need, have you ever applied for or ever received any yeah, financial support from the government, whether that be SNAP, government funded healthcare, student loans? I know you're a veteran, KB, so a lot of your stuff comes through what you're given in for your service. So I would say separate from the stuff that you had to lay your life on the line for.
I mean, I had financial aid when I went to school initially before the military, but that's about it. I was an immigrant, and my dad's an immigrant, so we didn't get any of that food stamps and whatnot. We just had to figure it out.
How about you? How about you, Bill?
Um, right now, like all of our kids are on an Illinois like regulated healthcare plan.
Okay.
But other than
Like the
that,
state funded one?
yeah, like all kids is this something like that.
Okay.
But other than that we have not. And actually, this is something I talked to Sid about earlier that I did want to mention too. Just looking at like as far as like the government spending and stuff like that again.
Mm-hmm.
I don't, and this is kind of a little bit speak to the point about just giving out money and everything to everybody that like increasing the amount of money somebody does or doesn't have doesn't necessarily fix the problem. Is that we just I spent the weekend helping brother finish moving in Indiana, and we were discussing his mortgage payments, comparing where he is with his rate versus where we are with our rate, amount of money
Yeah.
down, and like cost of the house. And you know, I have a significantly lower loan with a significantly lower interest rate and significantly more money put down. Yet our payments are virtually the
Identical.
same due to the fact that he is in Indiana, where there's a significantly lower uh, property tax on their houses. And like looking at my mortgage right now, okay, I pay principal and interest, and that is like 40% of my mortgage payment, and the other 60 just goes to property taxes and homeowners insurance. And
Okay.
then my insurance hasn't gone up that much. The property taxes are.
Yeah, the
So
property tax I heard has been a huge problem this year. I think Illinois is
it's
rated either the highest in the country or second highest in the country since 2018.
yeah, I was gonna say since we've moved here, are due to property tax increases. I mean, we moved here say about four like tax cycles ago. So in that time, our mortgages went up almost $400, $500 a month. So kind of, stemming that back to what your question was about, like the receiving the aid and stuff like that. It's like,
Yeah.
we are in a situation where I have a 2 income household right now, but my wife has limited income, but part of that is by choice. Obviously she wants to be,
Yeah.
an active mother, but it's by choice in another aspect too, because theoretically we actually could, make it work to the point where she could earn more. But then, every dollar is just like taxed so heavily in the state that we've actually kind of ran the numbers. And for her to like increase to a full-time position,
Yeah.
that would put us in a out of the bracket where we're eligible for that healthcare. And the prices of it are just so high. And the money that we would make after taxes is like less than
Yeah. Bill, that's
like
the
getting the
poverty
healthcare that we're
wall.
getting now.
That's that chasm I was
Right.
talking about. So that was
Right.
so
So I'm agreeing with you on that for sure.
yeah.
But just to like, to speak a little differently on that, I guess it's just, where like just opening up healthcare to more private companies and allowing companies to sell healthcare across state lines and just again like increasing competition, is that going to be something like would those choices lead to lower healthcare prices for everybody? And then
Yeah.
on the flip side, comparing somewhere like Illinois to 30 minutes across the border, somewhere like Indiana, okay, with that reduction of taxes where I have more money in my pocket, like now I like have the funds to like purchase the healthcare and stuff like that. And I guess it's just a question of like, you know, does the do these welfare systems really work, or do
Yeah.
they, you know,
Well,
do they promote like? Because right now it works for my family. It definitely does.
Hmm.
I'm not
But it
arguing
wouldn't
that.
work if you
But
wanted to increase how much you guys brought in.
right, it's promoting us to like work less.
Yeah.
of course, in the
That's
current,
how the system is
I'd
set.
rather give back more to society than less. I would
So
rather not get it, earn
I
more,
guess I guess my
and then
follow-up
pay
question
for my
then,
own thing.
Bill, is um if we were to, instead of giving money to a space company, and we took that pot of money that we were giving to that and put it into a universal health care program, or even if we just did a universal health care program that ended up bringing down overall property taxes throughout the country because it's more cost effective to run it all in one standardized model, would you support something like that?
Yeah, and I don't get me wrong, like I don't think SpaceX is like a great company. I think they are a great company. Like they're great in the fact that like they're this space company and they've had like awesome achievements and stuff like that within like the sector that they're working. Do I think that like we should be giving money to that sector? No, not really. But if we're gonna, if the country is deemed that to be like the thing that they put a value to, then I guess like there we are. But I definitely think that like that is what needs to be like reevaluated. It's like, okay, well, like what are our goals as a country and like where do we want our money going?
That's a
And
great
not even
question.
right. I think that's what it ultimately, a lot of these different topics, whether it be like you said in your original things, education, healthcare is a great example too. Uh, Foreign affairs, it's like, you know, how do we really get an answer from the majority of the people that live here and say, okay, like if you could make America yours exactly the way you want it to be, what does that look like? And I feel
That's
like,
that's
what's being pushed from either side is just like not really it.
okay. So I'm hearing healthcare, education. Is there a third thing that you would want us to third sector that you think the U.S. should prioritize putting their money into?
Well, I mean, just to speak on those two before we even like think about a third one, I think it's important to know that like again, I just like I use something like Common Core, for example, where like, that's something that's being pushed in the education system. And I think, it serves the point where like, yeah, somebody like should be able to move and should be able to pick right back up where they left off.
Mm-hmm.
But again, it's kind of like, I know there's like a lot of money linked to, testing scores and stuff like that. So then it's like, is that a fair like evaluation of like how the education is actually being ran through that school? Are there, it seems like there's like huge opportunities that are being missed. KB brought up, really putting a lot of emphasis on like tech in schools. I think that's a really good idea. I mean, I think the classic argument you have when you hear school funding is like, oh, is it going to the football team or is it going to choir? It's like neither thing are important, really. Like
Yeah.
one's a game and one's singing, like no offense, but like, neither one like
What about
makes a
for our
fucking
road?
difference. Yeah,
Yeah.
right. Like it'd be cool if like we had like an engineering class, where people learn how to like make something or like do something with their life,
Yeah.
you know. Not that engineering's the way, but obviously, if there could be a little bit more emphasis on things like that, I think,
Yeah. Would you want something
ultimately it'd
like
be a lot better.
KB, I'm gonna get back over to you on this. But would you guys want something like a home ec class or kind of some like basic life skills classes put back into schools?
Yeah, I'm down for them, and I think they come up too much as electives, and I think they should be a little bit more mandated, especially like when I'm thinking about when I graduated, that was 2011. The mandated classes that I had to have was 2 years of a foreign language, 3 years of mathematics, 2 years of science, and 4 years of like English rhetoric. It's like, okay, we're in a time where like AI could write an essay for you as long as you have the thoughts and stuff like that. So like why was it so important to capitalize on 4 years of APA format and make sure you're cite your sources correctly and put the appropriate that stuff was all
Yeah.
stupid, a waste of freaking time if you ask me. Where you could like you know mandate 2 years of that and mandate 4 years of science and mandate 4 years of math and mandate a year of a home ec or some type of like financial planning. I mean, how many times like when people get to college, I've heard it like so many times. People in that first year, they're like, "Oh, I didn't really know what to do," and like the counselor recommended me like this financial blah 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 class. I've heard that like so many times. It's like, dude, you needed that financial plan a year ago before you took out the $40,000 loan to go to this school and learn about it. It's like maybe you wouldn't even be here if you had any semblance of like an idea of what you were doing.
How about you, KB? Do you want to speak on education for a little bit? Or do you want to go into a little bit more about where do you think money in that's collected under taxes going towards?
As far as education goes, I think it would really depend on what the state would say. So again, for us, the state of Illinois, what the state of Illinois wants, right? So do we want our next generation of workers to have a balanced education? Do they want us to have a more targeted education? What do you want from your workers? And once we have a conversation about that as a collective, then we can kind of go forward. So that's why I was saying that if we all said that, hey, we want to increase our technology in the state and improve Illinois' ability to be a tech hub for the future. Let's create the next wave of technological engineers. Or let's say, hey, we would switch our grid because I think we have 8 nuclear reactors. Hold on a minute.
In Illinois?
Mm-hmm. We have 11.
So
We have 9.
yeah, well,
So we have 11. So we have 11, 6 operational, 11 in total. They provide about 50% of the state's electricity. If we were just to say, hey, we want to increase the amount of total reactors we have, set up small modular reactors and then medium-sized reactors, and we want people to work in those facilities, targeting something like the high school would be the easiest and honestly the most efficient way. Is making sure your high school graduate had the skills to go directly into working in a facility, or possibly, I, I don't know, possibly doing a community college program, same thing like for technology, so that we give them extra 4 years of targeted time in their field. And I think that's just where high school is supposed to be, where you learn what you want to do. Obviously, you're extremely young. Another reason why I also don't think that you should have a reason to go to school. We have the technology, we have the resources to provide a UBI. Let's do it. Let's give children the opportunity to learn life. Do not have to go into a $40,000 debt like Bill said, and actually understand what do they want out of life. You want to go into school. You want to go into the military. You want to go into a trade school. You just want to like feel and understand what life is. That we should give people that opportunity. We're just choosing not to, so that Billy Bob can have his third and fourth Porsche and get another what's it called? Um, Storage container facility built for no reason except for we need more facilities built. It's like it's silliness.
That's
We're
insane.
wasting our money.
So I guess I got a couple yes or no questions to follow up with both of you on. I guess my first one is going to be for K through 12. Should we have free lunches for students? Yes or no?
Of course. Yeah.
How about for 2-year trade schools, free for all Americans? Yes or no?
I would bump that to 4, but yeah, 2 years is easy.
As like you're saying like as an after high school thing if you wanted to go trade.
Yeah. Yeah, a free 2 years for in school, and then assuming it'd be tied to some apprenticeship program that they can get signed up on, whether that be state or private.
You know,
State.
I'd like to take the opportunity to jump off that as well. It's like, I don't necessarily think I'm not going to say that I think it should be free.
Okay.
Because again, it's a fine line of like, okay, yeah, we're all paying for it, and then only some people are using it, but then at the same time, we all get some value out of those some people who learn something there. So like I can see how in a roundabout way, even though someone who doesn't directly benefit from it still does get some benefit from it anyways.
Is there as a follow-up to
Go
you,
ahead.
Bill, then is there any
Yeah.
version of free education that you'd like, whether that be online videos that people can watch and test out of a college credit classes, um or something along the lines of just like you put so many years towards a public non like program like the Peace Corps or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily know, but I do like what you just said there. Like, I think that there should be. Hold on, it's Katie
I'm
going.
laying back in. Yeah.
Okay. Um, but just off what you just said right there,
Hmm.
I think that there should be like different kind of like I don't want to say entrance exams, but like I think for starters, like the way the 4-year university is set up right now, I am not a fan of that either. For the same reasons that I feel like the mandates of like a high school level education, I'm not a fan of. You know, I mean, I pursued a degree and then I switched halfway through. I went for
Hmm.
engineering first and then switched to accounting. And like, I mean, like, I'm mandated for like a philosophy class. I'm mandated for English rhetoric classes. I'm mandated for, these history classes. It's like the history is history. It didn't miraculously change in the time that I learned about it for 4 years in high school and then, went to college the next year. It's the same history that it was then. And like, obviously, yeah, you can be a little bit more analytical on it and stuff like that. But like, that should be for someone who's pursuing an education in history. So like, I don't think that a 4-year university should even be like a necessary thing. I think you should, when you get there, like you should be doing it because you want to pursue something, not
So
just, hey, I went to college. I'm going to college because I'm done with high school now. And like, the only thing I know how to do is go to school, but like I don't know why I'm here and I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just kind of floating. So like I'm gonna just, go into, crazy amount of debt for this year to just basically, piss off while I'm here and not really like get anything of value out of it.
If they made those Common Core classes free online and something that you can test out on your own time, would you be okay with that?
Yeah, yeah. If there was something that you pursued on your own, and then like okay, I'm gonna use the accounting example. If I had only a 2-year university where it was specifically on my accounting classes, but I learned things on my own, I should be able to like come to that university, take an entrance exam before I get there, get scores, and then they could like say, okay, hey, based on your knowledge of the subject, these are the classes that you need to take to earn your degree. And we've determined that you have tested out of the knowledge that like you would gain from X, Y, and Z class. So like you're gonna earn those credits just by coming in here and doing well on that exam.
Yeah, they did it with math in my university, but they only did it up to calculus. So anything that was calculus and above, you still were mandated to do the
Yeah,
classes for.
they did the same for us as
No.
with mine.
So I just can't understand this. So you're saying if I am an engineer, right? So I'm an engineer right now. I shouldn't need to understand history because history doesn't matter for.
No, what I'm saying is I think that K through 12 understanding of history is sufficient for a person to become an engineer. Now, do I think that
Do you think that
you
K through
should have
12 should be standardized then for the history?
again? Yeah, I mean, I think there should be like a level of like a base level of what should be, which is similar with the Common Core idea, but at the same time, like I don't want to devalue people who are doing better in other areas from like going past that. So, having like honors programs or things like that that people can test into, I think would be like, something that needs to remain the same.
Well, yeah, but that's different than like the program completely changing. It's not like you join honors and then now you're going to learn something completely different, right? Like we're all going to
No,
learn
right, right. I think we should, yeah,
base
like
math.
if exactly like whatever the topic is for whatever the let's say the 8 topics for 8 months, whatever, for X amount of this time, you should
Right.
learn
Battle
those topics no
slavery,
matter what.
Civil War.
And right, but like maybe in those other classes, there's you learn a little bit more about the same topic.
However, you shouldn't have to if it's not necessary for your job.
So
Well, but as a seventh grader, do you know what you're going to do when you're
Well,
18
that's what
years
I'm
old?
saying though, is that like when you're in college though, right? And you're like working and you're like, okay, I want to be a doctor or I want to be, in my case, an engineer.
Sure.
I wanted to be an engineer. I still had to take like a technology across the world class. It didn't necessarily matter for like my general technology course. It was basically a community organization course. And that was like completely the opposite of digital forensics. But I still had to take it. And
Which
today
so
I
I disagree
better
with that.
understand how organizations are, like NGOs are created. It's just creating the whole idea is so that way you understand the world around you, whether or not you
I'm not.
think it's
Yeah,
worth it or not. It's kind of
I'm not opposed to people, you know, furthering their own education if that's what they choose to do. But I don't think people should necessarily be forced to do it at that like price cap, just to earn a degree.
well. It
I don't
sounds like
like I think
cool
you
with
should
it,
pursue
but
that.
to a
If
certain
you
extent.
like if you wanna learn that stuff, if you want to learn about NGOs and stuff like that, go for it. There's nothing holding you back. I think you should do it if that's what you want to do. But at the same time, does every engineer who's ever come out of before your university want to
Mhm.
learn about that? And then
Or need
I,
to
you
learn
know,
about
exactly right. If they don't need it and they don't all have a desire to do it, then they shouldn't be forced to do it.
it. And who would decide who needs it? Would that be
So I guess the here what I'm hearing back here is that Bill, you would like it so that by the time you're finishing your senior year of high school, there is some set amount of knowledge over the broad sense of topics that we're
Right.
expecting all graduates to have. And then when you go to a 2 year or 4 year school after high school, that's just specialization focus. So whatever
E-
they're teaching in
Exactly.
these Common Core classes in college, you're expecting that to be already taught in high school and before.
Right. Exactly. You could almost like think of college as like the, I mean, like compare, like it should be a direct comparison to a trade, and like they're not writing papers for no reason, and like doing experiments for no reason in a trade school. It's focusing on what you're specializing in, and like
Yeah.
getting it done in that certain period of time, and like you know as someone again who went for accounting and engineering, like I had to take a astronomy class. I mean, you know, that money well spent. I don't think so.
You don't think the
KB,
ability
KB,
to think analytically was well spent?
I don't think talking about the stars when I'm trying to balance people's taxes is helpful to me at all.
you can
Well,
tell them
that's
what
the
their
difference
findings
between
are.
looking literally and so if you look at the topic literally, okay, yeah, stars have nothing to do with accounting. But
Right.
the ability to think abstractly about large objects such as the universe, I think, is very, very helpful to someone like an accountant who might have to work with large numbers. But that's just me.
No,
At
I
the
mean
end of the
I
day,
don't I
I
don't
think
disagree
that
with you.
a education is for a well-rounded individual.
KB,
I can lift 1,000 pounds, but I can also play a cello. You should be able to do both things, right? Like I was in the military, but I read poetry before bed. Like there are two things that we all can do in our lives that like there is a duality in all people. And I think that's what education's trying to do is that it may not seem like it makes sense to take a history or science or whatever, but those actually help you reinforce other aspects of your main goal of being an engineer, an
KB,
accountant out
KB.
there.
Then reading your side back then, in contrast to Bill, even if there is some set of broad knowledge we want all students to have coming out of K through 12, you think that as you learn your specialty, you should still have to learn more specialized versions of other topics because it's a part of building your skill of understanding the world in those more complex ways.
So no one
Am I
said
getting
anything
that
about
right?
specialized. So that would be a great, great generalization of what I was, or a great over exaggeration of what I was saying. I was
When I
talking
say
about
specialized, I mean like a 4 year major or something like that.
yeah, you still have to take 400 level science classes if you're just like an art history major, right? So you just have specialized for a 4 year degree. A 100 level gen ed on astronomy is not specialized. You understand what I'm saying?
No, 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 no. That's not what I was trying to get at. I was saying like, okay, so from K through 12, you have the knowledge, the broad sense of knowledge that we want everybody to be at. And then when you're going to college, whether you're choosing engineering, your accounting, social sciences of some sort, um, on top of those specialty classes you need for that degree, those common core classes you think are essential because it helps your brain grasp those other complex topics from whatever major you've chosen. Is that kind of what you're getting at?
Correct. So I think that there does come a point, even when you specialize in a way, where you do need other classes and do need other specialties to understand your specialty even better. So for me to understand cybersecurity at a lot deeper level, I may have to read about stuff like organizations or learn about things like, I don't know, the military and just keep my mind open to other ideas having like can be extrapolated into new ideas, right? So like you can get a dialectic, you can move from one idea and another idea to a new idea.
Bill, do you have a response to that?
Yeah, I just okay, like here, if we could meet in like a central, like meet in the middle of this, you know, let's think about our K through 12 as it is right now. Okay, how about it's K through 13 now? It's a 5 years of high school, and you start kindergarten 1 year later in your life. So now, when instead of being an 18-year-old who's got that level of comprehension of what you've got from 13 to 18, when you enter your specialty, you've had an additional year in high school. You've been doing that from 14 to 19. Do you think that 20-year-old now who's had an extra year of like those gen eds, if you want to call them, at like one additional higher level, you know, is it necessary then?
So for me, it doesn't necessarily matter whether it's 12 years or 14 years. What matters is what is spent in those 12 to 14 years. I am
Right.
saying if you were to go past those two after the 12 years, let's say we keep the same 12-year schedule, after those
Right.
12 years, you should be given a list of options to do. And one of those options could include nothing. And you should just be able to learn the world. And you should be given the opportunity to just like experience what life has to offer and not have to worry about the basics like food, housing, shelter, because that's provided to you by the community, like the people that raised you. So,
Right. No, I don't disagree with that. I don't think people should be, forced into college or anything like that, especially like right after coming out of high school. But I guess like just going back to like what you said just a minute ago, that like you don't necessarily care if it's 12 years, 14 years, da da da. It's like okay, so then like should the standard for what Common Core is in the K through 12 just be raised? Would that like just speaking on education specifically, assuming you're going right to that university afterwards, if the bar was raised on what Common Core should teach when you get to that high school level, then do you still think it's necessary to like have 2 years of gen eds while you're pursuing a specialty, even though that like the rate potentially the raising of the bar and the of the Common Core itself in your high school days would have gotten you a sufficient understanding of the world
of course,
on an
because
educational level?
I went to school full, I went to from sixth grade all the way to senior year of high school. I was in honors and gifted classes or whatever you call them. That's what the
Sure.
classes I was in. And I still feel like I definitely needed to understand development across the lifespans to be able to understand, oh, this is what's going around. This is what's happening around me. So that way I can better
Yeah.
understand just life. Like, yeah, it seems silly. I didn't like the fact that I had to do an English class, but let me
Yeah.
tell you, I'm the best writer out of all of my team right now. And it's like, it's
But
unfortunate that that's the way it is, but
now
that's just how
can
it
I
is.
ask you something
Sure.
before I lose my thought? Do you like you've been in honors since sixth grade, you said. Okay, so you've been a person who like did well in school your entire life, and that was not, schooling isn't something that was really holding you back. So like I guess my question to that is like just pretend you didn't go to that, you didn't get those English classes and like you still have your same understanding of the world and everything that you've learned in every other class and you were in your honors classes through high school, do you think you'd still be the best writer in your team?
No, absolutely not. If I didn't have those English classes, no. I also wouldn't be the thinker I am today. The way that English, the places like rhetoric, your writing classes, my professor improved my analytical thinking. I mean, 50, 100%. Like the ability for me to sit down as a late late 20s, almost early 30-year-old man and be able to read some complex poetry or read some, you know, dense text by W.E.B. Du Bois or by Frantz Fanon and be able to understand what they're talking about. Yeah, I had 12 years of like understanding, but in college, that year that I spent was so transformational because it pushed me to be like, you know what? Maybe I don't suck at writing. Maybe I don't suck at understanding what's happening in this book or in the world around me. Like those are very, very important. You may not think they are at the time, but 10, 15 years later, you're like, oh, dang, I still remember what she was talking about there.
Yeah. Well, then I guess now, seeing like the age that you went to school and like the value that you put on it at that point in your life, I think, that almost begs the question too of like, okay, is that the typical college experience? And, you know, I would say it is, that would be considered atypical. So like your results, while they're good and they're great for you, I don't necessarily know that they follow. Like, do they
I
match
dropped
with?
out after my first year and then went into the military. Then I got out
Right,
and went
right,
back to
right.
school.
But see, that's exactly what I'm
So
talking about. Where you were as, in your first year when you dropped out versus what you got out of college when you went later in your life after the military. You're obviously, your brain continues developing and you continue to, understand things and learn things and stuff like that over, the course of time that it took you to get back to college in the first place. So like obviously I think, it's fair to say that like that plays a huge role too in your ability to, really understand these classes and find value in them.
I suppose, I guess if you were to use something like the military, it was more just like, I know what shitty feels like. I know what shitty looks like. So I better take this
Right,
seriously.
right,
Whereas,
right.
like, what I gained from that English class allowed me to be an absolute monster when I was in the military academically. So again, I just don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. I'm not a fan of higher education. Higher education sucks. It should be freaking free. All of these classes, it's ridiculous that one class can cost $2,200. It's ridiculous. We should all just be able to go to school and learn what you want to learn because it actually has a value to our community. At the end of the day, it has always been a class war. It's the top versus the bottom. We have people like Jeff Bezos, like Elon Musk, like Peter Thiel, like uh, Warren Buffett and his son that owns Decatur. What's his son's name? Do you guys know that guy's name?
I can get it for you real quick.
But
I don't know it off the top of
Buffett's
my head.
kid, it's kind of crazy. We just have oligarchs that are just running around taking our children. And then we're just like, oh, well, that's the way it is. It's like, no, we can do something more than this. We can actually have a robust system that says you're more than just objects.
Yeah.
Where
Well,
you
I
going
think
with
this
Yeah.
has been a real.
So go,
Oh,
go,
go
go
on,
ahead.
Bill.
No, you go. You go. You're good.
Oh, I was gonna say this has been a very productive call. Like I said, I wanted to end this at 10 p.m. so that we have that hard close on it. Um,
Sure.
this has actually been really insightful for me in getting some input from you guys. I guess I just have one last question to just kind of sign off on this. And if you guys want to do more calls like this, feel free to let me know. But my last question is now that we've kind of got the juices flowing with like our our government reform and kind of like things that we want to see done differently. Are y'all planning on voting in our Illinois primary in March? Yes or no?
Yes.
Sure.
Okay, awesome. Well, that's I think all the time we have for today. Do you guys want to say anything before we close?
Go ahead, Jimmy, if you want.
Oh no. I started out. I'll end it. You go first.
All right, sure. Um, yeah, I mean, I agree. I think this was a great call. I appreciate you having both of us on. I mean, it's fun to, chat with people, especially, I love more like I hate the echo chamber that is a lot of politics talks, right? In today's age. So it's refreshing to talk to somebody who has different ideas, and I appreciate you having different ideas, KB. I mean, you know, every time you say something, it either opens my eye to like a new idea or, you know, maybe it helps me feel a little bit more strongly in what my ideals already are. So I think, having opposition in a conversation is like just the best thing. Because I think we both benefit from it in one way or another. And yeah, I mean, you sent us a lot of topics, Tom, and definitely would love to talk more about the other stuff too.
Yeah, we barely scratched the surface.
Yeah, right. I feel like we were just getting going.
KB?
So from my side, again, definitely it was great talk. Definitely good to see the other side and understanding kind of what happened, because it's really good to get a postmortem as to how we got to where we are in society. And I think the more that we talk, the more that we're going to see that there's a lot more in common, and that uh, eventually that we'll see that there is a lot less in between us, and there's a lot more for us to agree upon. So that's where I'm going to end it right now. I think I'm good on that.
Sounds good. Yeah, just based off my notes that I've been taking, y'all do have a lot in common. And definitely
Exactly.
in
Everyone's a socialist.
Right.
It just takes a little bit to
Yeah.
convince them to be a communist.
Yeah. I think,
Everyone's a
and I think too,
socialist.
yeah, and the reality of the thing is, we're all Americans. We all Illinois people. Like, we all want to live in a good town, in a good state, and in a good country. So, like, at the end of the day,
Exactly.
our ideals and morals are all, we want to make the place that we live better. It's just a differentiating, like, how we get there.
Mhm.
That's well said. All right, guys. Thank you again. I should have this posted hopefully early on Monday. I think I'm gonna do a little bit of a sign off intro into the conversation and then clip some dead air out of it. But I'll send you guys the links once it gets posted.
Great. Let me know
Sounds good,
my
man.
audio stuff, because yeah, I have no idea what the heck happened,
It
and we'll
sounds
figure out a
good.
different recording system.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why I went with Teams today, just because I've been using the recording software on Teams for other things. So I'm hoping that this recorded better than any of our previous attempts of doing a recording. So
But
fingers crossed.
sweet,
All
yeah,
right.
let me know.
All right. Good night, guys.
Good
Ah,
night, man.
bye.
Thanks for having us on.
Thank you for listening to our conversation. Please let me know in the comments if you all want to hear more talks like this. Moving forward, the next series I'm going to publish will either be talks on the constitutional reforms discussed in the US Constitution Verbatim series or an Illinois Constitution Verbatim series. I'm willing to do other states as well, so just drop in the comments on what states you want me to do after Illinois. But as we mentioned in this conversation, we're all from Illinois, so that's going to be kind of my priority, and then we'll go from states from there. I did enjoy having this conversation with Bill and KB, and I'm looking forward to having more talks like this in the future. This content or any media produced by me, Tom DeLuca, may not be used for training, testing, or developing AI systems without prior written permission from myself. I hope to see you all in future videos. To make sure that you guys don't miss any content, please subscribe, hit the notification bell, and look out for more content. Sometimes stuff like this will end up at the bottom of your subscription barrel. Thank you again, and I'm looking forward to talking with you all in the future.